Welcome back to Simrite Fashion Academy. Today's lesson is going to be the drafting of a shift gown, as you can see on the screen. If you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe, like, share this video to family and friends, drop your comments on the comment section, turn on your notification bell to receive videos each week. To begin this tutorial, I'm going to make my border lines, which I've already made. You can see on the paper I have my shoulder line, but I'm going to draft both the front and the back bodies of this gown first on the same sheet before we'll add our allowances. And I'm making use of the following measurements. You can see the measurement parameter I have here. I'm going to work with these parameters. I'm going to transfer my vertical measurements now. I believe that by now you must have known your vertical measurements. Measurements you take from your shoulder to your waist to your full length. But in this case, you are going to take the measurement of our shoulder, from our shoulder to our bust point, under bust, waist, full length. We are using our under bust because of the design you are seeing on the chest of that gown on the screen. Because this is a shift gown, normally we don't need an under bust, but because we are going to carve out that design through the under bust, as we continue to draft, you will know why we are using an under bust. So I'm going to transfer my vertical measurements right now, as usual, starting from our shoulder line, and I have a bust point of 11, under bust 14, half length 18, hip length 26, and full length of 42. I'll repeat the same thing because I need to get a straight line. I need to square my line on a straight line. I have 11. Alright, I'm going to square my line to get a straight line. Like I earlier said, I'm drafting both the front bodies and the back bodies of this gown on one sheet. Therefore, this is 1 inch allowance for my zipper. I'm making use of this 1 inch as my zipper allowance for the back, while the red line serves as my center front. I'll be drafting everything on one body, both the front and the back bodies of this gown. Then when I'll be cutting this on my fabric, I'll cut the back first, after which I'll cut my front bodies. So the first thing I'm going to do right now is to determine my shoulder. My shoulder is 14 inches and I'll divide it by 2. I have 7 inches. I'll place my tape as usual. This is my 7 inches. I also want to determine my neckline. I'm making use of a neckline of 3.5 because it's a high neck. I'm making use of 3.5. And at this point, I'll be squaring my line. This is my front neckline. Like I said, I'm going to draft both my front and my back bodies. So as I'm drafting the front, I'm drafting the back as well. So I'm going to create my back neckline, and I'm using 1 inch for my back neckline, and I'll be connecting with my ruler. You can see how I'm connecting it. Remember, the width is the same, but the depth is different. This is the back neckline and this is the front neckline. Now I'm going to drop my shoulder from the point of my shoulder divide by 2. I'll be dropping it with 1 inch, which is standard for an adult neck, adult shoulder slope. The next thing I'll be doing right now is to determine my chest line and my armhole depth line. There are two methods to determine your armhole depth line. You take your round armhole, take the measurement of your round armhole firmly, divide by 2. Or you can use your bust measurements. I have a bust measurement of 39, divide by 6 plus 1.5, and I'm left with 8 inches. So whichever way, this or that, they are all correct. I'll place my tape on my shoulder drop and I'll make a mark of 8 inches. And I'll come over to get a straight line. Remember 1 plus 8 here. I'll be placing my tape 9 inches. Now I can square my chest line. So I have my chest line right now. Okay, so I'm going to transfer my shoulder measurement, divide by 2. Remember I have 7 here. I'll bring it back here. This is 7, and I'm going to square my line. Okay, to determine the half of this, and I have 4. That is my midpoint. So on this point I'm supposed to have my across shoulder measurement, but in this tutorial I'm going to take, for the front, I'm going in by 3/4 or 0.75 inches. That is from the front. Then I'm going to connect from this point to the 0.5. Now remember, I'm drafting both the back and the front together. So for the front I'm taking 0.5. This is my 0.5 for the back, and I'll still connect it back to this point. So don't be confused. This is your back and this is your front. I'll cut the back first before the front after this drafting. The next thing we are going to place is our bust line. Our bust circumference is 39, divided by 4, and I have 9/3. I'll be placing my tape on the front, center front, and I'll be making a mark of 9/3. Now on the point of this 9/3, I'm going to place my armhole curve from the, I'm placing that of the front first. Remember, we are drafting front and back together. So I'm placing that of the front first. You can see how I'm placing it. This is my front, and I'll come over to the back on the same point, and this is my back. You can see that now. So I have my front, I have my back. Now remember, we are not making use of the underbust, but I have this underbust line because of the design you are seeing, the V-shaped design you are seeing on the chest of the shift gown. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to place my half length measurements. My half length measurements, my waist measurement is 35 on the half length, divided by 4. I'll be left with 8.75. This is my 8.75. Now I want to connect this 8.75 first. This is 8.75 or 8/3, and I'm going to connect it to the 9/3 points. You can see that. Okay, that is the original bodies without any allowance. Then coming over to the hip line, I have a hip of 45 here, and I'm going to divide 45 by, all right, I have 11.25. That's 45 divided by 4. I have 11.25. Then I'm going to transfer this 11.25. I'm going to transfer it to the hem or the full length. So I'll be placing my tape on the center front, and I'll transfer 11.25. Okay, So this is my 11.25, my 11.25 points. Now I'm going to connect these lines right now. 11.25. okay, so I'll be placing my hip curve, as you can see, taking it down to the hem. You can see the beautiful shape it has there already. So what you are seeing right now is a full bodice gown, front and back. I want to come to the zipper. Remember, we are drafting front and back, don't be confused. So for the back drafting right now, on the half length, you can see my half length, or this is my waist. So I'm going to contour my line because I'll be putting a zipper at the back of this shape gown. So I'll be taking the measurement of, from this 1 inch, I'm taking off half an inch for my contour line, and I'll be placing my ruler from that point to the neckline. You can see that. So I'm going to contour my line, okay. Then I'll also place my ruler on that point down to the hem. You can see how I'm placing it. So what are we doing right now? We are trying to make sure that there's no puff at the back. So now we've taken away 1 inch from half inch from our waistline. Now we'll be replacing it here. But before we do this, before we replace it, we are going to add our allowances, okay, our ease, because this is a shift gown, it's not a fitted gown. Shift gown are drafted with ease, that is with allowance. As you can see, it's not really on the body. On the screen, that gown is not on the body, but it has some space around it. So we are going to add our ease allowances right now. The very first allowance we are going to add is at the bust. We are adding 0.5 inch for our ease for the bust. Then coming over to our waistline, we are going to add 1 inch ease allowance, and we are going to come over to the hem. After adding your 1 inch, then to the hem, having added my 1 inch allowance to the hem, I'm going to add 3 inches to the hem, 1 inch for the waist and 3 inches for the hem. Now we want to replace the zipper allowance right now, okay. I'm supposed to replace the zipper allowance with 1.5, but because we are drafting the bodies together right now, if I add the 0.5 rather, is going to affect the front. Remember, we are drafting both the front and the back. So I will be advising we add our normal allowances. Then when cutting our back, please don't forget to add your 0.5 replacement of this zipper contour that we took away. So we are going to connect back our allowances right now. I'm connecting my 0.5 ease to my 1 inch ease. All right, now I've added my 0.5 for the bust, 1 inch for the waist. Then I'll add another 1 inch for my hip. Then I already have 3 inches for the hem. So I'm going to connect this in the same manner I connected my fitted bodies. It's a shift gown, you remember, so we are going to place the same manner we placed our hip curve. That's that. All right, so I'm going to connect from my hip the 1 inch to the 3 inches of the hem. Shift gown is going to look like. You can see how beautiful it is. So the next thing we are going to do is to create that chest shape, the V shape on the chest. Now we are going to make use of our under bust right now. So you can see that that V shape is running all the way from the shoulder down to the under bust. Okay, so I'm going to go in from this point. I'm going in by half an inch, and I'm going to connect this half an inch in a V-shaped manner all the way to the under bust. So I'm connecting this all the way to my under bust. You can see that's what I have on that chest. So you can see this is what I have on that chest, that design, you see. All right, so that is the beautiful design we have on that chest. Now you notice that there is also some pleating. Okay, so to achieve that pleating, we are going to measure what we have here. You can see on this shape I have 14.5, so I'll be writing 14.5 beside it, for the 14.5 inches. So this 14.5 inches, I'll be timesing it by 2, and I'll have 29 inches. So I'm going to cut off a strip of fabric of 1.5 inch by width and 29 inches by length. Okay, after that I'll show you how to do it, and I'll attach it for you to see that design you are seeing on the screen. But for now, this is a part of that design. Okay, I'll be cutting it on fold. After tracing it, I'm going to trace it with my tracing wheel to another paper under it, or I'll use my tracing paper and place and get exactly this shape. Okay, that's why you see I shaded it to make it different. So the next thing we are going to do is to draft our pockets. Remember, there's a pocket on that shape gown. From my waistline or my half length, I'm going to come down. For my pocket, I'm coming down by 2 inches. This is where my pocket will start, and from these 2 inches I'm going to take the width of that pocket as 6 inches. That is what my pocket. So why do I have this? If you look at, you can see my hand right now is entering perfectly. Can you see that? If I'm putting my hand, for example, into the pocket, let me spread the hand for you to see. You can see it's entering very perfectly. So I'm going to assume right now that from this point, I just want to trace for you to see. You can see what I'm doing, and I'll bring it back to this point. So that is how my pocket is going to look like. You can see that. So I'm also going to trace out this shape I have in my pocket. You can see if I put my hand, I have enough space to contain my hand. Okay, it's balanced. So that is the shape I'm going to trace out for my pocket. Okay, we'll also trace it out anyway. So now we have our complete gown right now, and you can see it's already looking beautiful already. But one thing is remaining. I want to show you what we can do to eliminate having some sharp points at the edge of this gown. So I'll be coming up with 1 inch. 1 inch is okay. Then I'll be placing my, you can see how I placed my ruler. You can see that to eliminate that sharp points. Okay, you can see that now. It's looking beautiful already. So I want you to take note that there is no seam allowance added to this pattern. Okay, these bodies has no seam allowance. I have my front, I have my back bodies. So if I'm cutting this pattern right now, if I'm cutting out these bodies right now, I'm going to cut off from here. That is my back. I'll take this way, I'll go through this way, then I'll cut out through this way, then I'll go through this way. That is my back. You can see that. I'll stop here. Okay, I'll terminate it here because this is my zipper. I'm running my zipper on this one. But before you cut, after cutting this, what I just demonstrated right now, on your fabric you'll be adding your 1 inch seam allowance. I don't want to confuse you with adding seam allowances right now. Okay, you add your 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch seam allowances on your fabric, and also you add your 0.5 inch seam allowances all over, as you can see. But there is no seam allowance here because I have my 1 inch seam allowance for my zip already. Now remember what I told you about this 0.5 we took away will be replaced here. So when adding on your fabric, please don't forget to add 1.5. 1 inch here, 1.5 here, you connect. 1 inch here, 1 inch here, and when you are sewing, you sew your 1 inch while you still have your 0.5 to replace the 0.5 we took away from here. So now you can see my pocket is in place right now. Alright people, I'm done with this shift gown. You can see it's as simple as ABC. You can do it. So all I need to do now, I'm going to trace out, then cut off my pleats. Okay, I'm going to cut off a long strip of pleats, and I'll also times it by 2 so that I can get my pleats. Then I'm going to trace right now. I'm tracing this shape and I'm tracing my pocket shape. So watch me trace. This is my tracing paper. Okay, you can see how I'm keeping my tracing paper right now. You can see I'm making sure that I hold my tracing paper to allow me trace perfectly. Okay, I'm placing it all over this shape. Okay, so now I'm tracing the neckline. I'm tracing. So when you are tracing, make sure you trace exactly what you have. Okay, now I'll trace through the front, center front. I'll trace to the point of my shoulder seam length. Then I'm going to place my curve the same way it was placed. Now I'm going to make my mark to show that I'll cut it on fold to achieve cut on fold. Now I'm going to bring out my tracing paper. I have this already traced. Now you can see I have my shape traced. Okay, so when you are tracing, make sure you trace appropriately. Now I have to cut off the shape I have. Alright people, you can see this is the shape I have. Okay, and I'm going to set it aside. Now I'm going to trace my pocket right now. Okay, I'll be placing my tracing paper, as you can see, and I'll hold it in place as I did. Now it's time to trace my pockets. Okay, I'll be using this ruler to get a perfect curve. Okay, you can see. Then I'll place it and make sure I have a perfect curve to this point. Then I'll connect. You can see that now. That's my pocket. Okay, then I'm going to take it out and cut it off and set it aside. Now you can see I've traced out my pockets. Okay, so this is my pockets. This pocket you are seeing here, I'm going to cut this piece of pocket by 4 times 4. Okay, what do I mean? I will have another like this to attach this and add my seam allowance. Remember, when you are cutting, you add your 0.5 seam allowance all through, and you are going to cut this in 4 places. Okay, that's 1 2 3 4, but you are not going to add any seam allowance at all here, because as you can see it now is already here. The 1 inch seam allowance you are going to use, you are going to stitch on this, because I don't want to see the pockets coming out. You see some pockets sometimes they start coming out. It's because of the extra seam allowance added to stitch. So in this case, I don't want it to come. I want the pocket to hide inside. So I'll only add my seam allowance and attach my seam allowance directly to this pocket. Okay, so it will be falling inside. Now this is all we have for this drafting. Okay, so I'm going to cut it off right now. So I'm coming to this point of the bust. I'm cutting through the back armhole. Remember, I drafted the back and the front armhole together. So I'm cutting off the back piece of this drafting. The back piece of this drafting. Remember, there is no seam allowance. So I'll be passing through, cutting through the neckline. As you can see, I'll take it straight. Okay, so I'm cutting through the zipper. Like I said, everything I'm cutting right now is my back piece, and this back piece I'm going to place it on my fabric. Okay, this is what I have. Let's assume this is my fabric. This table is my fabric. Now I have my back, as you can see. So now I'm going to add my 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 1 inch, 1.5. Remember, for the intake, 0.5 intake, 1 inch, 1 inch seam allowance. There is no seam allowance here. Please take note. Now, after cutting this back piece, I'll set it aside. The next thing I'm going to do is to trim off from here. I'm going to trim this one and discard these parts. I'm going to trim, cut off through this point this way. See how I'm going? I'm cutting off through this way, and the red line, that is for the front. So having done that, remember, this is to be cut on fold. This is my front piece, is to be cut on fold. So when cutting the front, you take through the red line this way. Okay, you cut it off, then you place and you add your seam allowance. It's very simple, you can do it. So the next thing we are going to do right now is to draw the sleeve of that outfit you are seeing on the screen. So let us do that. So for the drafting of the sleeve you are seeing on that screen, okay, the sleeve that comes with the sheet gown we are drafting. First of all, we are going to draft our basic sleeve, which is normal. So this is my sleeve head, and on the sleeve head I'm going to place my tape to determine my sleeve cap height. My sleeve cap height measurement will be taken as 39 inches, which is my bust, divided by 12. You add 0.5 is to it. So I have 39 divided by 12 as 3.25 plus 0.5. So I'm going to work with 3.75. This is 3/3. Please don't be confused with point. 3/3. So I'm going to place my tape on the sleeve head, and I'm going to make a mark of 3/3. I'll come over here, I'll do the same 3/3, and I'm going to square my line. So this 3/3 right now, I'm going to also divide it by 2. So how do I do that? To get a perfect division, just place the tip of your tape on the 3/3 and divide it into 2. So I'll place it on top of the sleeve head. Okay, divide into 2. Make sure you don't miss that mark. Okay, you see the mark here, and I'll be following that mark to place my own mark. I'll come over here to get a straight line. You can see that. So I'll square this line right now. All right, so the next thing we are going to do is to place, I'm going to place my round armhole measurement divided by 2 here. Remember I told you there are 2 ways. Either you take your round armhole, divide by 2, place your tape on your armhole firmly and take the measurement, divide by 2, or you can use 39 divided by 6 plus 1.5, which we already had at 8 inches. So at this 8 inches measurement, I'm going to place my tape. This is my 8 inches here, and I'm going to divide my 8 by 2 to get the midpoint. So I'll place my tape. This is my midpoint, and I'm going to square my line at the midpoint. Now I'm going to place, this is my 8 points, this is my 8 inches. I'm going to place my curve ruler or my French curve. Okay, you can see how I'm placing it to determine. Then I'll flip it this way to that 8 inches, as you can see. Then I'm connecting my line right now. You can see that. Okay, so I'm going to come up for the back sleeve. From this point, I'm coming up by 0.5 or half an inch. Then I'll place in the same manner I placed. I'll take it up, okay, and it is still touching this point, but here it will touch the 0.5. Then I'll flip it around to touch the 0.5 and this point. You can see that now. All right, that's my sleeve head. Then I'm going to add 0.5 inch for ease to it. That is my sleeve right now. So the next thing I'm going to do is to determine the length of that sleeve. If you look at that sleeve, is in a 3/4 sleeve, and the 3/4 measurement I have here is 17 inches. I'm going to place my tape to get the 17 inches, and then I'm going to square my line. You can see that. So remember that at that sleeve we have, at that particular point, we have some gathers to it. Okay, so because of that gathers, I'm going to take whatever thing I have here, 8.5. I'm going to place the 8.5 on this line. All right, so you can see that that gathers is a little, not too gathered. So because it's not too gathered, I'm going to add 1 inch to it. Okay, let me say 1.5 to it. And I'm going to connect the 8.5 plus the 1.5. So at this point, I'm going to connect this point all the way to the 0.5. You can see how my sleeve is going right now. So because of that gathers. Now I'm going to have my gathers. You can see my gathers running all through this way. But these gathers, after gathering it, is going to fit into that little band. So I'm going to take the measurement of that little band. That is a band of 1 inch. 1 inch. Now the length of that that band you are seeing there is taken at that 3/4. You can see what I have here. I have 10 inches. You can see the measurement I'm taking, okay, not too tight, a little bit free, and I have 10 inches here. So that 10 inches, I'm going to divide it into 2 because I'm working on half of that sleeve. So divided into 2, I have 5 inch here. So at that point, I'm going to first of all square that 1 inch band. This is my band, okay, and this band is going to be 5 inches band. So I'll measure my 5 inches again at this point. Then I'm going to square my line, okay. So this is going to serve as my band. Let me shade it for you to see. So when I cut this off, I'll be taking the gathers to fit in this band. I hope you understand that. Now this is the sleeve. There is no seam allowance added to it, but when after cutting, you are going to add your seam allowances. But at this point, you are not going to add any seam allowance. You are going to place your sleeve on fold. It's going to be cut on fold. That's, you fold your fabric at this point and then you cut. So at this point, okay, if you want your bicep to be too bogus, you can use this. But if you look at that sleeve we are having on the screen, it's not as bogus as this. So we are going to do a little alteration to make it a little fitted at the bicep. So I have a bicep of 8 inches. I'll make a mark at 8 inches. Then I have a round bicep of 16 inches, which is 8. Divided by 2, I have 8 inches. So I'm going to place my curve ruler at this point. Can you see what I'm doing? Let me change my marker for you to understand. These are 2 ways you can do that. Okay, you connect it to this point, and at that point you now connect from that point down to this point. Okay, so these are 2 ways you can achieve that sleeve you are seeing. So by the time you fold into this point, then you will have what you have there. But if you feel that you have enough, got too much puff or enough gathers at this point, you can reduce this. Okay, remember we transferred 8.5 here and we added 1.5 to it. Okay, you can just reduce it to 1.5, or better still, you can leave it at 8.5. so it depends on your choice. Okay, if you want to pack enough of it here, you add 1.5 to what you have there. If you just want it simple, you use 8.5 exactly as your gather. So whichever way works beautifully well. Okay, so you can cut through this line, you can cut through this line. That it depends on the kind of sleeve you want. But for the sleeve you are seeing on that screen, you go through this line. So I'm going to cut off this sleeve right now. Then I'm going to show you how to take the measurement of that pleating you have on the chest. So at this point, remember I have this line and this line. Okay, I want it to have a little shape at this point before I gather. So I'll be going through, taking my blue line. I'll be cutting through my blue line. This sleeve also, I have 2 sleeves in one, back and front. So I'll be cutting the back first. After cutting on my fabric and adding my seam allowance, then I'm going to cut off for the front sleeve. So remember, this is the side you are going to cut on fold for it. All right, lovelies, you can see this is my main bodice pattern grafted. And remember that we have our traced chest design. Now there's a pleat, some pleats or gathers on this chest edge. Okay, and remember I told you I have 14.5 inches when measured from this point to this point. So that 14.5 inches, I times it by 2. 14.5 times 2, I have 29 inches. So the length of this paper is 29.5 inches, and the width of this paper is 2 inches. Okay, so this is 2 by 29 inches. And at this point I'm going to cut it on fold. When cutting on my fabric, I'll be cutting on fold. Okay, so what do I mean? I'll fold my fabric and I'll cut this strip, and one part of this strip, that is where I'll have my pleating. Okay, you see how I'm pleating it? So you can see that that's 14.5 times 2, which is 29, is for one part of this. Okay, you cut it on fold, this other one will go the other way. So it's either you gather or you pleat. Okay, you just make a fine pleat that will fit in. You can see that will fit in at that point. That is exactly what I mean. So I'm going to set this one aside, that is for the pleating, and take away my pattern. Now you can see what I have here. That is my pocket. Remember that this is the upper part of that pocket. You can just make one mark to show, then the down part, so that when cutting or sewing you'll be able to know which part will be at the upper side and the down part. Okay, so you have to add your seam allowance. I've explained that before. 0.5 will go all over, but there is no seam allowance added to this. You are going to sew 0.5 with the 1 inch of your side at that point of the pocket. 1 inch seam allowance you have at that point. Coming over to this, you cut on fold. You add your 0.5 seam allowance. 0.5, 0.5. Okay, because you need to turn in when sewing. You turn in the 0.5 when sewing, or you place your pleats on top of it. As you can see, you make sure that your pleat or your gathers get to this point, and you place a bias tape on top and run it. Whichever way you want, it works. Then coming over to your sleeve, you are going to gather your sleeve. You gather, okay, run your gathers on your sleeve, and you fit it in on this particular band. This band you are going to add 0.5 seam. You will not be adding 0. This side will be cut on fold. This is also to be cut on fold. Okay, so why here you just cut on fold, and you add your 0.5 to join with these gathers. You also add 0.5, that's half an inch. You add half an inch. You are going to make 2 times of this to turn it on, okay, before you stitch on this point. Then this side will be cut on fold. You add your 0.1 inch and your 0.5. So this is all we have for this tutorial today. I hope you enjoy this content. Okay, this is the main pattern. So if you find this content helpful, don't forget to turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this that comes up every week. Like, share this video to family and friends, and like this video also. Drop your suggestions at the comment section, and continue watching this Fashion Academy. Thank you very much for watching. See you in my next video.